act as a route to market in many different ways and engage with smaller farmers, for example, in my case, in multiple different ways. I think it is just not feasible for us to do so for many different reasons, primarily related to risk. So the key thing, I think, that development organisations can bring is helping us to manage some of that risk.
But what are the starting points for these relationships? And what are the motivations from the private sector's point of view?
Well, I mean, the ultimate motivation for the private sector, if we're talking about commercial business, is to make a profit. But that profit for many businesses, in particular our business, is we look at that in the long term. And in the long term, it makes sense for us to develop whole value chains rather than to look for one-year profits. So that's the way we look at business. In terms of how these relationships can start, I think the onus is on both parties to make it work better than it currently does. I think a lot obviously comes down to relationships and networking, but I think there could be more structured ways that we could engage with each other.
But the profit motivation may well be something which is distasteful for a lot of people working in the humanitarian field. What's your response to that?
I think it needn't be. I think if business is done well, it should benefit both parties. We have a saying in Dal Group: if your customer is starving, or if your customer is poor, then your business is poor. We have no long-term interest in exploiting farmers or customers. In fact, it's very much the opposite. We have an interest in sharing the value we create. So I think if you can start to think in those terms, then the profit motive needn't be a disincentive at all. One of the problems we've had is sourcing groundnuts that are free of aflatoxins, and it's an enormous problem in Sudan. What I was looking for, and the reason why I started talking to development organisations, is to find one that could help us solve that problem at the root, which means at the farm, working with small farmers, and in this case in Darfur. It's not something, from the private sector perspective, we can work around the problem simply by going to the market and returning any toxic or contaminated groundnuts. But actually it's in our long-term interest, as is in the interest of the country, to eliminate the problem at the root. So I got into conversations with UNDP, who were very interested in looking at the groundnut value chain, and they've put a lot in actually, and been really committed to making this work. So they are doing a lot of the sort of one-off investments in things like storage facilities, in terms of retraining the farmers in the right cultivation practices, and we as Dal Group are providing kind of technical consulting support, and also providing a route to market, long-term sustainable route to market for